The downtown Toronto riding of Davenport. Geographically, it's relatively small, only about 12 square kilometers. But numerous multicultural communities make up its fabric. Nearly half of all residents here speak a language other than English or French as a first language. Davenport has a large Italian population as well as other Europeans, including and especially Portuguese. 27.5% are ethnic Portuguese, the highest number of any riding in Canada. It's a densely populated and diverse riding, and politically this election, it's shaping up to be one of the tightest races in the GTA.
Sou Julie, la candidata liberal. Ai eleições setembro 20.
Liberal Julie Zarowitz is the incumbent who has held the riding since 2015.
Okay, muito obrigada, senhora.
During that election, she squeezed out the NDP MP Andrew Cash by about 1,200 votes.
Hi there. Hope I can earn your support on September 20th. Take care. Thank you.
She beat him again in 2019, but only by a slightly larger margin of 1,500 votes.
I don't speak much English, mas português.
A senhora fala português. Tanto prazer.
This time around, Zarowitz is up against a new NDP opponent.
So you could save some steps.
Alejandra Bravo, a well-known community activist and organizer who the party believes could be their best chance of gaining a foothold in downtown Toronto, where they do not have a single federal seat.
A small sign over here. Okay. Monica's very good at putting in the signs.
The Liberals hold all 25 of Toronto's federal ridings. It's very important to both parties to win in Davenport.
I see so far a dogfight there between the two of them, and that they're both really hoping that they have the chance.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you all for being out here today. Let's hear another huge round of applause for Julie Zarowitz, who's been just an extraordinary voice.
It's usually a pretty good indicator of a key battleground riding when the leader pays a visit. And both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have made stops in Davenport during the course of this campaign.
For me, I really feel that I've done a great job of serving this community. It's one of the key reasons I ran in 2015. I didn't feel it was getting a fair shake from the federal level. I brought in, together with my team, a historic amount of funding to the riding. We've helped to deliver bike lanes, historic amount for Canada Summer Jobs, seniors programs. So for me, it's important for me to hang on because I want to continue to serve this riding.
They're very open for a change in Davenport. People are tired of promises. Like, we've had so many broken promises, things that really matter to people in this riding. Like electoral reform has always been important in this riding. Things to do with Indigenous people's rights. Saying one thing and then doing another is just something that people they don't want to really take anymore.
Davenport is also represented provincially by the NDP.
Olá, sou Marit Stiles, sou a membro do Parlamento Provincial para Davenport.
Marit Stiles has been the MPP since 2018.
This is one that is very much in play, no doubt about it.
Which NDP commentator Tom Parkin says helps Bravo.
Yeah, for sure. Marit's, a well-known figure in provincial politics. We see her all the time in the news and advocating for education. She has a strong team here, so Alejandra is able to join on top of that already established NDP team in Davenport.
But a win will not be easy. Other than one 4-year term when NDPer Andrew Cash held the riding from 2011 to 2015.
Earning enough to raise a family.
Davenport has been a Liberal stronghold for decades, since the early 1960s. For many voters, it's hard to imagine it going any other way.
It's amazing what the pandemic's done, though.
But even Liberal insiders see the change that's been taking hold as the riding veers farther left.
What has happened in the last 3 or 4 elections, though, is the NDP used to get maybe 20%, and the Liberals held the seat between 1962 and 2011. That's a long run. But since then, it's a real fight with New Democrats, and the NDP have essentially doubled their vote. They've gone from 20% to over 40% in the last 3 or 4 elections, and the Liberals are around 40%. So it's a real scrap. For the NDP, they've been out of the game in Toronto for the last couple elections.
Yeah.
This is their entry point.
Right.
They really want to come in, they really want to get back in the game in Toronto, and this riding probably is their best bet to do that. On the Liberal side, Julie Dershowitz has been underestimated several times out, both in 2015 and 2019, and she won both of those times. She's a hard worker and, again, has, I think, a decent organization. So it'll be a good scrap in Davenport.
The issues in Davenport are the same ones on voters' minds across the country.
Housing. I think housing is a serious issue. My son is 25, and I think, you know, this poor boy is never going to be able to afford a home in the city of Toronto. And finding work for young people these days, it's all gig economy, contract work, and very few really decent, well-paying jobs that will afford the next generation to be able to live and work in the city of Toronto.
Yeah. The subject of housing comes up in this riding time and time again. Affordable housing, affordability in general, homelessness, poverty. At least one report shows that 1 in 4 people in the riding live in poverty. The candidates are hearing these concerns at the door.
And what are you hearing from them in terms of issues?
I mean, the affordable housing crisis is just huge in this riding. Inequality, people concerned that during the pandemic we saw just how, you know, the wealthiest people and billionaires actually profited. They made billions of extra dollars, and when it comes to recovery, they want to make sure that we have fair taxation, that we're all contributing to the reconstruction of the economy. Climate change is huge in this riding as an issue.
In terms of issues, I'm hearing childcare. Really important for us to get that over the finish line. Climate change. People are so nervous, and they're looking for a government that's going to have a credible plan, one that they can implement as quickly as possible. And if anything, they want it turbocharged.
You can let your parents know that I came by and Julie and the Liberal came.
The Liberals have promised to spend $30 billion to bring in $10 a day childcare within 5 years. It's an issue close to Julie Zerowitz's heart. She's been a long-time proponent of subsidized childcare. But families with young children have been hearing politicians' pledges on childcare for years.
What do you say to voters who say they're tired of these promises, you know, they've been getting for years and years and years, and nothing ever comes of them?
Well, we have been talking about it for 50 years. We were very close to implementing. The federal Liberals were very close to implementing in 2005, 2006. We did not win that election. The Harper government came in and gave, instead of national child care, put in a $1,200 credit per year. So now we have $30 billion that's been approved in our budget, that we passed before the Parliament rose for the summer. We have 8 provinces and territories that have signed on. My understanding is that Premier Ford has indicated he's interested in signing on should the Liberals win. And so for me, we're close. We are implementing national child care. If we get our mandate, we will get it across the finish line.
The Conservative platform promises child care tax credits that they say will reduce costs by thousands of dollars.
Yeah. It's really, really tough for people trying to get in.
To put in perspective just how unaffordable the housing market in Davenport is for most people,
tons of change around here.
Alex Brott, who's been a realtor in the area for 15 years, showed me a relatively modest house that recently sold on Lakeview Ave, just west of Ossington, for $1.85 million.
Is that 2 stories?
That's a 2-story house, no garage. No potential for basement income, which was a very important factor around here sometimes.
Right.
But it was a lovely home, not marble, sexy everything, but lovely, nice, very move-in ready home.
Right.
1850.
Brott says over the last 5 years, house prices in Davenport are up by 40%. You'd be hard-pressed to find even an unrenovated row house for under $1 million. The rental market is not much more accessible for many people, Brott says. She cites an example from her area.
There's a basement apartment on this street. It's a lovely basement apartment, but it rents for $2,700 a month. I paid $400 for my basement.
Yeah, I seem to recall about that for
25 years ago. But yeah. So it's very expensive.
Brott says the Liberal plan to do away with the standard practice of blind bidding during the sale of homes is a start. She says this system is good for the seller but lacks transparency and is terrible for the buyer. It's debatable whether or not this change would actually bring house prices down. Some experts say it would not.
We do hear that there are more tents.
But homeless advocates say to truly tackle the affordable housing crisis, there's only one way to do that.
It's trite to say it's an easy solution. It kind of is an easy solution. The simple answer is the need to actually build more housing.
Keith Hambley is the CEO of the local support organization Fred Victor, which runs a number of shelters, permanent housing and supported housing services in Toronto,
changing the image of what a shelter should look like,
including the emergency women's shelter Fatima House in the riding of Davenport.
And you're full?
And we're full. All our programs are full, our housing programs are full, our case management programs across the city are at capacity, and we also participate and work with the city around a hotel program and respite programs. In any given day, we probably work with close to 2,000 people across the city of Toronto.
Hambley is pleased that the housing issue seems to be a priority for all parties in this election.
It's really in the doing. And whoever is elected to form the next government, this issue is not going away. It's not being swept under the carpet. And I think it will be paramount for any MP who is elected, regardless of the party they're in, to be championing creative, innovative ideas around housing creation and access to housing.
Issues around affordability are really big in Davenport. When you talk about affordability is, the price of housing, the price of childcare, the good jobs. You also have a very large, strong community in the arts sector. So that gig economy, that it's very challenging, right? Self-employed, the security of those jobs, the benefits for people that work in those economies. And again, as well, seeing their places of work and the places of living being pushed down, not being able to afford to live and work here anymore. So those are definitely issues important here in Davenport.
Anna Bilo has been the city councillor for this area for almost 11 years. She has seen gentrification of her neighborhoods that serve to contrast the difference between the haves and have-nots.
Park is everybody. They can come to the park.
There is great affluence in Davenport with grand, multi-million-dollar homes juxtaposed against homeless tent encampments in nearby parks.
We need to house these people. There has to be a better solution.
Bilo knows that governments can act quickly on the housing front when pushed. She points to a modular, supported housing building that went up in the riding in a matter of months during the pandemic.
So it was a project that actually the city used the land, and the federal government financed the construction of the modular housing, and there's people living there today, and so that's an important project in the community as well.
And we need more of that.
We need more of that.
One of the interesting and progressive characteristics of the City of Toronto, and something cycling advocates say we have to fight to protect and grow, is the network of bike lanes. And in this riding of Davenport in particular are some of the highest numbers of cyclists in the country, as high as 29%. Why such high numbers in this riding in particular, do you think?
Well, certainly it is about the density and the demographic of folks that live here. A lot of younger people have moved in, but also making it possible for people to take a bike for even a casual trip. We have bike share stations everywhere, certainly being connected to the subway line as well, so that you can ride your bike when you want to, and owning a car isn't the only option for getting around. I think car ownership is quite low as well.
The dedicated bike lane on Bloor West that now runs as far west as Runnymede, with plans to extend it even further, is one of the reasons cycling is growing in this riding. But Cycle Toronto says more needs to be done. In many parts of the city, there's no cycling infrastructure at all. And in many others, including in the riding of Davenport, cycling continues to be a dangerous undertaking.
The number one reason cited that people don't ride is because they don't have a safe space to do it. So, the most impactful thing that you can do is give somebody a protected space to ride their bike, and it will make a huge difference.
Like, I would definitely bike a lot more if there were more bike lanes similar to this. I feel like there's been like a number of cyclist deaths. You know, it happens every once a month, and it's been happening continuously, and they're not doing anything meaningful to actually address it. I think there's like actual things that they could put in place, but painting on the side of the road isn't much, and it doesn't protect cyclists.
More dedicated bike lanes.
More dedicated bike lanes.
It's true that cycling deaths are not uncommon in Toronto, and the riding of Davenport is no exception. There is still what is known as a ghost bike memorial, dedicated to a young woman who was killed last year while riding on Dufferin Street, where there are no bike lanes. Cycle Toronto says there are solutions, and what Keegan Gartz hopes from the newly elected federal government is to make sure that new infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, transit initiatives, have cycling infrastructure built into the plan, design, and are fully funded.
All levels of government need to recognize that commuting patterns are changing, that people want to be able to get to where they need to go by active transportation, and they need ways to do it. Because if you build a beautiful new LRT line, but you don't have a way to get there without risking your life, you're probably not going to ride your bike.
There are 3 other candidates on the ballot in Davenport. The Conservative candidate Jenny Calambet told CPAC she was not available for an interview.
Oh, hi. Hi, are you Jenny?
I'm Jenny.
She also did not participate in the Zoom candidates debate on the 8th of September.
I do want to note that we also did invite candidates from the People's Party of Canada as well as the Conservative candidates. So I just want to let everybody know that that did happen.
So we're in an election, and you know that everyone's in full election mode right now.
There is also a Green candidate.
Well, thank you for your time.
Who was involved in the debate.
This is shaping out to be the climate election. In fact, climate change is at the top of a lot of voters' interest right now. What we're hearing at the door is that we want credible action on climate change. We need to stop building pipelines. We need to stop fracking. We need to stop resource extraction and focus on real plans for climate action.
Did you get a button? Would you like a button? These two, if you want.
Adrian Curry has a network of volunteers who, like him,
you go everywhere on your bike?
Almost everywhere.
Get the green message out on 2 wheels.
Awesome. This is quite the billboard for your candidate, isn't it?
It's fantastic. People love it. I'm riding all around Davenport.
Well, climate change is an obvious concern because the planet is on fire. We've had the fires in Lytton, the town burned down in a couple of days. And it's affecting everyone across the country. Ontario was feeling the effects of the forest fires. Even the smoke was reaching its way down here to Toronto. Climate change is a major issue. And we're trying to highlight the fact that we're the Green Party. Our entire existence is focused on the environment. And when it comes to climate change, we've got the best plan to tackle climate change, bar none. In fact, what would be most important for me would be to go home and to make some calls.
The Greens in Davenport normally can expect to win 3 to 4% of the vote.
Yeah, I could just go back to work. So I've got some gardening to do.
The likely scenario is that will translate into that much less support for the NDP. But that is not Adrian Curry's concern.
Many people would say you have little hope of winning a seat here.
Right.
That doesn't stop you.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm just getting warmed up. This is my first campaign, and as I've been telling voters at the doors, I am the Green Party candidate for Davenport for now and the foreseeable future. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to take my time to build the relationships and to show Torontonians, to show Davenport people that voting Green is a viable option and it's a must if we want to tackle climate change. Our point is to get the message to voters. So whether we poll at 5% or 10% or 12%, it's just a matter of spreading the word and spreading the message. And that's what my focus is on this election.
So who will win this riding?
Hi, Vito.
Good morning.
Who better to ask than a fixture on the Bloor West Strip with decades of wisdom to impart? Vito the barber.
Have a seat.
Thank you. How long have you been here?
Not too long.
Not too long?
No.
A sign up there says 1958.
Yeah.
That's 63 years.
That's not too long.
Vito wouldn't tell me who he'll be supporting this election, but I got a few hints.
It's possible that the NDP might win in this riding.
I don't believe it.
No?
No.
Do most of the people that you know vote Liberal?
Lots. Almost all my customer. Almost.
All your customers?
Yeah, almost.
Uh-huh.
I never been a conservative.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
So, but no NDP. I am against the union people. Thank you.
Great job.
Okay. I hope so.
Hi, I'm Kyra. I'm 14 years old, and I cannot wait to vote.
Hi, I'm Aurora. I'm 15 years old, and I can also not wait to vote.
These teenagers have a few years before they're even of age, but they're interested and engaged and keen to get involved in the process. Although of disparate ages to Vito, they agree with him on one thing.
I would not vote Conservative. It's not just what I align with, but yeah.
Me neither. Well, I think there should be more representation of people of color because I think, like, right now everyone's white at the moment. There are a few people of color, and I think it's great that there are people of color getting into Parliament. But when it's just white people talking about the rights of people who are not a part of their group and do not have the same struggles as them, it's hard to feel included in that group.
Well, I feel like there are like a lot of issues in this election, and I feel like climate change, of course, is awful, and then there's also like racism and then homophobia that like we need like people, like Cairo said, we need people in the government who have had like first-hand experiences with that to like actually help.
While polling has shown support for the NDP growing, it remains unlikely that Jagmeet Singh will form the next government. But that does not deter the local NDP candidate in Davenport, even if she and her NDP colleagues wind up as the opposition party.
Does that make you hesitate in terms of the influence that you can have?
Absolutely not. I mean, we've seen historically in this country that everything good that we've gotten has happened in a minority government. Until the 1960s, we didn't have health care in this country. It was a minority government with a strong NDP. Until the 70s, we didn't have pensions. Minority government and strong NDP. And now in this last minority government, if it was thanks to the NDP that we got those CERB payments at 2000, that there was help for nonprofits and small businesses, I mean, those are really significant levers that the NDP can use to make life better for people. And with the, the way that this campaign is going, it looks like we are going to have another minority government.
And we've seen in the past 6 years, Justin Trudeau has made things worse.
While support has grown for the NDP over this campaign, Liberal support has stalled.
We can see the end of this pandemic.
They are essentially tied with the Conservatives.
I'd like to respond to Justin Trudeau's latest attempt to divide Canadians.
Polls show the two main parties have been neck and neck, with latest numbers showing the Conservatives narrowly ahead. Although the Liberals appear to have a solid lead in the 416, it seems hardly anyone here is talking about a Liberal majority anymore.
We as a government have been there for people.
Which was Trudeau's hope when this campaign started on August 15th.
Do you think Mr. Trudeau is regretting this election?
I think so, yeah. He was riding at 36, 37% in the polls then, drops to 33 by the end of the first week, drops to about 30 at the end of the second week, where things seem to have stabilized for now.
I think that it's very possible that he could win a minority government. It's possible that he could lose entirely. I think neither of those things are off the table, and I think that they thought calling the election when they did meant that they sort of had it in the bag and could sort of re-up their mandate for the next while, and I'm not sure that they're going to get that.
No.
And that would be a huge blow to Trudeau's administration and to the party as a whole.
In Davenport, Julie Zarowitz is paying no attention to polls. She has her head down, working hard to beat her main opponent.
Poner a small sign? Can I put a small sign? Okay. Yes.
To retain her seat and be part of what she hopes will be the next Liberal mandate.
The biggest difference between Alejandra and I can be more effective as not only a voice, but actively creating change here, positive change for our community, if I'm part of an elected government. And I have far more of a chance of being able to do that than my competitor.
Obviously, they had a crummy first couple of weeks of the election.
Liberal analyst Bob Richardson sees that Trudeau's strategy in the final stretch is to convince people who might be tempted to vote NDP that he is the better choice.
He's trying to say, look, there are two people who could be Prime Minister of this country, me or Mr. O'Toole. Here's what I stand for on childcare, on housing, on the environment and climate change, on a whole variety of other issues. He's more on the progressive side. So he's saying, if you want a progressive government, I'm your choice. And by virtue of doing that, he's trying to take votes from the New Democratic Party, let's be clear. So I think that's what he needs to do in his final 10 days. He needs to become the champion of the progressive side. If he does that, I think he can be the Prime Minister. If he doesn't do that, it could be a long election night for him.
In Davenport, I'm Pam Seidel for CPAC.